Thank you for joining the webinar. My name is Nicole Jarrett, the Division Director of Corrections and Reentry at the Council of State Governments Justice Center and the moderator for today's event. Before we begin, I'd like to walk through a couple of housekeeping items. So first, anytime during the webinar, you can ask a question by typing it into the Q&A panel at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We'll keep a running list of the content-related questions that we receive and then ask the panelists to respond to the questions during the last segment of the webinar. We'll do our best to get through as many questions as possible. If you encounter technical or audio problems during the webinar, please call WebEx Technical Support at 1-866-229-3239. Please understand that there's some technical issues you may not be able to resolve. For this reason, we are recording this event and will be posted on our website, the www.nationalreentryresourcecenter.org. We should have the webinar posted online by early next week, and once it's been posted, we'll email you a link to the recording. Today, I'm happy to be joined by our partners in this work. From BJA, we have Ruby Quazalbosch, who's the Associate Deputy Director for Justice Systems Policy, Andra Bisia, Policy Advisor, State Policy Advisors, Zafra Stork, Jennifer Lewis, and Tracy Willis will provide important information about grant management. Senior Research Associate Jennifer Johnson and Research Associate Finesse Moreno Rivera will be discussing reporting requirements. From the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, we're happy to have Kathy Mitchell, Program Manager, joining us as well. Today in this webinar, you can consider this your warm welcome to the Second Chance Act family and the National Reentry Resource Center. We're so happy to have you. And what we'd like to do on this webinar is to introduce you to the resources and the technical assistance through the National Reentry Resource Center. We'll discuss some important post-award grant management and federal compliance matters, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And I'm sure there's a lot of very individual questions that you may have around receiving your award. Just let you know that it'll probably be best if you have very specific questions about your award to contact BJA to walk through those issues one-on-one. We'll keep the Q&A section of this webinar more general and broad. At the Council of State Governments Justice Center, our mission is to develop research-driven strategies to increase public safety and strengthen communities. And we do this by combining the power of a membership association representing officials in all three branches of government with the expertise of a policy and research team focused on assisting others to attain measurable results. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ruby Quazalbosch for BJA.
Thanks, Nicole. The Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention are both on the branch of the Department of Justice tree that reaches out to states and localities and tribes. And at BJA, our mission is to provide leadership and services in grants administration and also criminal justice policy development with a focus on the adult criminal justice system. And as Nicole said, a warm welcome to all of the new grantees that we have joining us today. You're joining a really big family of Second Chance Act grantees, and we're happy to have you with us. I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Mitchell from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention for her welcome.
Hi, everyone. Is everybody hearing me? Is that better?
Kathy, I'm just going to jump in for you. This is Ruby. We're hopefully you can get your the sound issue sorted out. Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, or OJJDP, has a strong focus. That their kind of title says it all, but they also focus and work with states and localities and tribes on really important youth programming. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention offers a number of grant programs also under the Second Chance Act, and we're proud to administer these programs and oversee the National Reentry Resource Center together in partnership with OJJDP.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for jumping in for me. I think there was a problem earlier, but just to circle back, thank you and welcome. If you all think of any questions that may not be covered, feel free to reach out to me directly at the conclusion of this call. Welcome again.
Great. The Second Chance Act was passed in 2008 and reauthorized in 2018. It supports state, local, and tribal governments and nonprofit organizations in their work to reduce recidivism and improve outcomes for people leaving incarceration. It also is what established the National Reentry Resource Center and over $400 million in reentry investments across the country, including various wide range of programs and services. Again, congratulations on your award. It was a highly competitive process. As Ruby mentioned, you join a large family. There's over 840 Second Chance Act grants that have been awarded, and you can see by the map on the screen, the 2019 cohort represents a great cross-section of activities across the country. Under the adult grant program for 2019, there's 4 different adult programs encompassing 44 grant awards. That includes the Comprehensive Community-Based Adult Reentry Program, improving reentry for adults with co-occurring substance abuse and mental illnesses, innovations in reentry initiatives, building system capacity and testing strategies to reduce recidivism, and innovations in supervision initiatives, building capacity to create safer communities. In the juvenile grantee cohort, we have 2 grant programs joining us for 2019, addressing the needs of incarcerated parents and their minor children, as well as the Youth Offender Reentry Program. While each program initiative and grant award represents a variety of different strategies, there is a common set of expectations for all Second Chance Act grantees, that you'll meet your proposed project objectives by completing the funded activities on time, that you would complete the planning and implementation guide that was outlined in your solicitation, and you will be receiving your FY19 Planning and Implementation Guide within the next month. That you would use validated risk and needs assessment instruments so that we can ensure that the most appropriate evidence-based practices are being used to serve your target population. That you track your progress and that you complete a project evaluation, and that you communicate regularly with your technical assistance provider, and that you seek help when needed. It's a two-way street. You should expect from us that you would get ongoing and timely support from the National Reentry Resource Center, BJA, and OJDP, and that's the reason why all of us are on the phone. And you'll soon get familiar with all of our different names. But know that we work very closely together, and there really is no wrong door when it comes to asking a question. You can reach out to any of us, and we'll make sure that we direct you to the right resource. At the National Reentry Resource Center, we deliver technical assistance and training to Second Chance Act grantees. We advance the knowledge base of the reentry field. We seek to promote what works in reentry and successes of grantees. We help facilitate peer networks and information exchange, and we provide information for people returning to communities and their families. And if you haven't done so yet, I strongly encourage you to check out our website, the National Reentry Resource Center.org. So you'll get very much acquainted to the technical assistance, but a big piece of what we do is learning not only from the research experts in the field, but also from you about what works, and we seek to push that knowledge out to the field broadly. What you'll also see is the latest news. We're a clearinghouse of resources in reentry. There's a National Criminal Justice Initiatives map in which we have an inventory of different types of federally awarded criminal justice awards, and you can search by state and find out what's been funded in your area. And then we have a directory of state and local reentry resources. You each will be assigned a TA provider from the National Reentry Resource Center. You all have proposed a very ambitious set of work and deliverables, and we are here to help to assist you in achieving your project goals and activities, while of course recognizing the unique aspects of your project. And so that support will come through a variety of ways, including distance-based TA and phone calls, site visits, trainings, and other distance learning opportunities. We will seek specifically to connect you to subject matter experts, and that includes connecting you with one another, and especially identifying grantees that have tackled similar challenges. We'll recommend publications and online resources based on your needs, and we'll host peer learning communities. We'll share with grantees and you all the evidence-based practices and promising approaches, including what we know works to reduce recidivism, data collection strategies, and sustainability planning. We'll seek to promote innovative work being done by SEA grantees, and we'll work closely with BJA to make sure that you're aware of grant management and reporting requirements, and we'll also keep them abreast of the innovative work that you are doing. With that, now I'll turn it over to Andre Bethia from BJA.
This is Ruby. I'm going to just handle the transition of the National Reentry Resource Center. We have worked, well, actually, let me start with to reiterate something that Nicole Jarrett mentioned briefly, that it's actually the Second Chance Act itself that authorized the Department of Justice to stand up a National Reentry Resource Center for both adult and juvenile reentry issues. And we have worked with the Council of State Governments Justice Center since we first completed that work after the Second Chance Act was passed in 2009. So they have been the provider and partner under the National Reentry Resource Center for the past 10 years. And I want to give a huge thank you to the staff and the leadership at the CSG Justice Center for their partnership over the last 10 years to build up the National Reentry Resource Center to what it is today, which is also a premier training and technical assistance center for the Second Chance Act grantees. Also want to let folks know that in fiscal year 2019, so last fiscal year, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, in partnership with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, recompeted, as we usually do about every 3 years, our training and technical assistance providers, and we did choose a new provider, the American Institutes of Research, and they will be taking over as the provider and the manager of the National Reentry Resource Center. They are doing that in partnership with Just Leadership USA, as well as with 7 other nationally recognized organizations working in both the adult and juvenile reentry fields. Our goal and intention during the transition period is that transition is as seamless to our Second Chance Act grantees, new and current, as possible, as we transition the work and the function and management of the National Reentry Resource Center from the Council of State Governments Justice Center to the new partner, American Institutes of Research. And so you'll hear a lot more about that as we transition in terms of identifying technical assistance coaches that you'll be in touch with. But like I said, the Bureau of Justice Assistance and OJJDP staff certainly remain here. If there's any questions, we don't want there to be any gaps or anything that falls through the cracks during the transition. It's our goal and intention. It's as seamless to the grantees as possible. So I'm going to turn it over to Andre Bethea, who's going to talk about moving from a planning phase of your grants, which will be kicking off soon, and how we get to the implementation phase.
Thank you, Ruby. Again, to all the grantees, congratulations on becoming a part of the Second Chance Act family. Now we're going to discuss moving from planning to implementation. During the planning phase, grantees will have access to a specified limited amount of grant funds to support planning activities. Grantees will work with their technical assistance coach as well as the BJA and OJJDP staff to complete their planning and implementation guides. Once the P&I guide is approved by the federal team, BJA or OJJDP, grantees will move into the implementation phase and gain access to the remainder of their grant funds. Please be advised you will not have access to the entire amount. You only have access in the beginning for planning phase, a very small portion, and you must complete and have it approved, the P&I guide, before you move into the implementation phase. So during the planning and implementation guide phase, you're going to be refining your implementation goals and activities. Each grantee and all your partners involved in your initiative, as well as your evaluator and data collection, all of that must be revisited. Yes, you did win the award. Yes, you're part of the team. But now we're going to take an in-depth look at the planning activities as well as the implementation and what it will take for you to achieve impact in your jurisdiction. The opportunity to address updates or developments since the original application. In many cases, some of you are in jurisdictions that may have newly elected leaders, or you're working with correction partners or community correction partners who may have had some changes. We will go back to the foundation of your work and look at ways that we can really make some changes that will require approval. You're going to use this opportunity with the Planning and Implementation Guide, or P&I Guide as we love to say, to track your progress and make adjustments to maximize positive outcomes. So let's be ready to dig in and really excited about this opportunity. Now, to discuss further requirements, we're going to transition to the state policy advisors to discuss grant management and federal compliance, starting off with Ms. Zopp.
Thank you, Andre. And I also would like to welcome and congratulate the new grantees on behalf of BJA Programs team. We are excited to participate in this webinar as an important partner in the Second Chance Act team. And I say team because you'll find out that we work closely with all participants in today's webinar. And it's our role to provide you guidance and technical assistance on administrative and federal grant requirements. We are here to help you establish strong administrative foundation, including financial and programmatic functions and tools. We like to say that we help keep you as the grantee out of jail and avoid audit issues so that you can establish strong administrative foundations which allow you to focus on effective programs and reaching those people most in need. I'll be presenting today with my two colleagues who are state policy advisors as well and talking about post-award grant administration, management, and federal compliance. Today we'll talk about special conditions, reporting, financial information, procurement and subawards, subrecipient monitoring, federal reporting requirements, grant administration notices, also known as GANs, grant compliance monitoring, and additional information and resources that you can use at a later time. And we picked some of the most important things just to touch on later, and we'll be giving you more guidance as we work closely with you. Special conditions are very important, and it's important to read your award documents and become very familiar with these requirements that are included in your award. And they cover areas such as programmatic, financial, reporting, prohibited use of federal funds, consultant rates, and changes in key personnel and proper disposition of program income. There are several mandatory special conditions that are included on all DOJ awards, and that you can find a list of them with the link below. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about withholding special conditions. These are conditions that place holds on funds for overdue reporting or your budget review, which many of you currently all have special conditions that limit any program spending until your budget is approved. They also cover other program requirements, such as if there was missing documentation or incomplete items during grant application review. And these are all listed on your special condition page, and you can work with myself and Jennifer and Tracy to help resolve those. Andre talked about the planning and action plan requirement. So many of your awards do include a built-in planning period, which leads to the development of the planning and implementation guide, also known as an action plan. You're going to work with your coaches with the NRRC and other program partners to develop this. So therefore, you should understand that those awards that have that withholding special condition limit how much money you can spend until you complete the program document. I can't reiterate enough, it's important to work with your state policy advisor to remove active withholding special conditions before you expend, obligate, or draw down funds. It's important to get familiar with those early on at this time so that you're not in the middle of your award period and you want to implement a program that you technically cannot do until you have addressed these items. Now I'm going to talk quickly on progress reporting, but this will be covered more in detail by the PMT team. You all have quarterly performance metric tool programmatic reports that are due in PMT, and they're due quarterly. Listed below are the dates. You also need to submit progress reporting requirements semi-annually. That's on the next slide. And that you would do, you are going to complete the reports in PMT, but you must upload them in GMS, as PMT and GMS are not linked. And those reports are due January 30th and July 30th and include a narrative in which BJA will provide you 7 narrative questions that you need to report on. Also, if you have a final progress report that includes an evaluation, you must attach that report to your final report that you mark as final in GMS. Another important thing to note is that when you have late reports, GMS will automatically freeze grant funds. So it's important to submit your reports on time. Also, you should understand that late reporting influences how your award is assessed for risk, which may result in increased monitoring by OJP. Lastly, I'm going to talk about court and criminal involvement, which is a component of your PMT reporting. Grantees are required to track participants by unique identifiers for court involvement and recidivism data during the award period and up to 1 year or including 1 year after release. Chief executives from your organizations are required to sign and submit an assurance that all participant recidivism indicator data will be collected. And this is really important to think about early on because you want your evaluation and data collection plan to incorporate these requirements. Court and criminal involvement data must be collected throughout the award period, but is only reported, and again, very important, on your final PMT report. So if you haven't been collecting this data all along, you don't want to be surprised and have to report it on your final report. Again, very important. And you must report quantitative, verifiable data for program participants on those that have been arrested and booked on a new charge, conviction for a new charge, revocation of the terms of supervised release, and lastly, reincarceration. So these are the data elements that you need to incorporate in your data collection and evaluation plan so that you can be in compliance for the court and criminal involvement section of your PMT reporting. I will now be passing on the presentation to my colleague, Jennifer Lewis.
Thanks, Zafra. I'm going to begin discussing Federal Financial Reports, SF-425. These reports are reported quarterly, and this financial report is submitted in GMS. Because these are new grants, you may not have any activities, so you'll be reporting non-operational or enter zero. Note that late reporting will result in a withholding, so please make sure to report on time. For financial training or issues with the system, please refer to the guide link or contact the OCFO help desk. Grants financial management training. The point of contacts and financial point of contacts listed in GMS are required to complete this financial management training within 120 days of award acceptance. Failure to comply will result in a withholding special condition. You can complete this training one of two ways. First is the 24-module training online or in an in-person format at OJP in Washington, D.C. And note, you can use grant funds to attend the training. Registration fills quickly, so please make sure you register early once it's announced. Recertification is required every 3 years. Next slide. Subawards and procurement contracts. The proper determination of whether a pass-through entity is a subaward or procurement contract is very important because there are different requirements that apply based on this determination. The substance of the relationship should be given greater consideration than the form of agreement between the prime recipient and the outside entity. So if you delegate program activities to another entity, whether an individual consultant or organization, that delegation will be considered a subaward. Most pass-through entities on your awards are programmatic and substantive and are generally classified as subawards. But you'll receive more detailed training regarding subrecipients versus contracts and sole source requirements during your financial management training conducted by OCFO, or you can contact your SPA directly with any questions. Next slide. And these are just helpful tools and checklists that you can use for requirements for subaward versus contract or sole source. Next slide. Subrecipient management and monitoring requirements. So as prime recipients, you must have written subrecipient monitoring policies and procedures that meets the requirements under 2 CFR. The purpose of the monitoring activities is to provide reasonable assurance that the subrecipient has administrated the pass-through funding in compliance with the same laws and regulations and the provisions of the award, and that the performance goals are being met. Some of the key components to effective subrecipient sub-award monitoring include, next slide, a sub-award agreement that specifies tasks and requires progress and financial reporting, as well as possible non-compliant penalties and termination procedures. A monitoring policies and procedures that meets the 2 CFR requirements, an at-risk base monitoring plan for selecting subrecipients to monitor, and a process for on-site monitoring, which includes monitoring checklists that satisfies the administrative, the financial, and programmatic elements, process for documenting findings in the report, and procedures for follow-up on issues for resolution. Next slide. SubAward Reporting. This is to be reported at the end of the month after the subaward or obligation was made. The Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act requires information on a federal award to be made available to the public through the usaspending.gov website. So you'll report this subaward information in the ssrs.gov SubAward Reporting System. You'll need to report on any first-tier subawards of $25,000 or more. We've provided user guides, FAQ, and help desk links here. Next slide. FAPIS reporting, Federal Awardee Performance and Integrity Information System. This requires grantees to report information on civil, criminal, and administrative proceedings submitted to FAPIS within SAM. The OJP grants and cooperative agreements that exceed $500,000 is required to report in FAPIS as part of your special conditions. So for more information, please use the link provided here. And now I'll hand it off to Tracy Willis, who will continue our presentation.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we're going to start now with talking about the grant adjustment notices. And we know that during the course of your grant, some changes may occur that you need to readjust your grant award. So listed in this slide is a list of approved types of gains that you can make. And please note that, and I think it was talked about earlier, if you are delinquent in submitting your progress report or your financial status report, then the submission of a gain will be halted until those two documents are submitted. So please pay close attention to the submission of reports and the types of gains that you want to initiate. Next slide. In terms of a gain to extend your grant period, that must take place at least 30 days prior to the current end date. Generally, there are no more than one no-cost extension made to the award. The award extension cannot exceed 12 months past the original end date. And no-cost extensions may be made only if the period of performance has not expired. Next slide. BJA will continue, and I think, again, it's been said earlier, that we work as a team. So that means that we're always monitoring our grantees to make sure things are done correctly and according to how you stated in your award. So BJA will be conducting formal monitoring activities. That's either through on-site visits or through what we call a desk review of your award to ensure that the grantee is conducting activities as proposed, meeting all fiscal, administrative, and programmatic requirements, identifying and addressing any issues, and also providing needed training and guidance. Next slide. Here is a list of common issues for resolution: unauthorized obligation of funds, incorrect classification of subaward as a procurement contract, the use of funds for consulting rates in excess of $650 per day, accounting policies and procedures, and indirect cost. Next slide. A continuation, lack of subrecipient monitoring policies, non-submission of gains for pre-approval, lack of compliance with FAFATA, lack of documentation to support match, and to support performance measurement data. Next slide. And below are the most common findings from audits of DOJ awards in FY 2016, the most recent year for which this information is available. I'm not going to read each one specifically, but I urge you all to take and pay close attention to these findings. For this, next slide. Thank you. Here's additional info. If you need additional information and you want to connect with your state policy advisor, or you want to see what other funding opportunities that the Bureau of Justice Assistance had, Below is our links. Next slide. And here's another list of important links. I would suggest that you either bookmark or make these like something really close to you so that you can access them quickly. The grants management system is a system that we use to communicate and submit, awards. So that GMS system is definitely a system that you want to be very familiar with. And just to put in a little blurb, it's important that we have correct email addresses to everyone that's part of the management of the grants. So please make sure you check and you have the correct emails, and also different email addresses. Instead of having it go to one person, we want it at least to go to 2 or 3 different people so that everybody can get this information. It was spoken earlier about the PMT. This is the link to the PMT as well as their help desk number and other OJP resources and forms and information that you will need. Next slide. Last but not least, the 3 of us that's listed here are probably ones you will be speaking with a lot. These are your state policy advisors for your different awards. So if you have any questions, you need some assistance in any way, these are your grant managers and their emails and phone numbers to get in contact with. I think I'm done here. So back to who's next?
Jennifer Johnson. I am going to be giving you a little bit of an overview today about performance measures training, but I'll also let you know that there are some upcoming opportunities to dive deeper into training that we'll be sending out emails for later. But today, just to give you a familiarity with performance measures training, next slide, I wanted to go over with you just some highlights. What is the performance measurement tool? It's essentially an online system required for grantee performance measurement reporting throughout your award. It's an online questionnaire. You'll see the link to it on this page. And you don't have access to it now, but we'll get you set up with an account a little bit later. You should expect emails to your POCs about that. You're going to be expected to report into it every quarter. So essentially, the year is split up into 4 quarters, and after the close of a quarter of activity, we'll give you 30 days to enter in data about your activities for that quarter. Next slide. Why do we have performance measures? Well, it's pretty simple. We give you funds to do good work, and we want to understand what are your successes, your areas of improvement. We want to be able to tout your progress, understand how our funds are being used, and also there's things in place where the government realizes that accountability and understanding performance and results are important. So we need to be in compliance with those laws. The kind of information that you'll be expected to provide are typically in the form of short answers, maybe numbers about people you've served, or just short answers that we prime you to report through our questions. But we do ask for some longer narrative questions that really get to the heart of how your program is accomplishing its unique goals and objectives. Next slide. The last thing that I'll leave you with is just some resources for you to get started with. If you're wondering what actual information we're going to be asking you for, on the right side, on the left side of this slide, you'll see a list of questionnaire links. These are essentially PDFs with a list of all the questions that we'll be asking you to get data collection from you each quarter. So it's a great tool to use to set up your own tracking systems and get ahead of the whole data collection effort. And of course, on the right side, I have some points of contact information. I have my colleague, Finesse Moreno Rivera, here with me. She is going to be the point person for Innovations and Supervision Initiative grantees. My name is Jennifer Johnson. I'll be a point person for all the other BJA SCA programs, IRI, community-based, and co-occurring. And of course, if you encounter any system issues along the way, we have a whole help desk operation to help you. With that, stay tuned for further webinars and training announcements, and I'm going to turn it back to Nicole Jarrett to help with the Q&A session.
Great, thank you. So opening it up for any questions. I know there was a question that was submitted earlier around wanting more information about the planning and implementation guides. I'll let you know that we will be having some grant program specific webinars. So earlier I showed the 6 different grant programs that we have. We'll have specific grant webinars to talk about the planning and implementation guides and more about that process. There's a question, what is the difference between the PMT and the GMS systems? I'll turn that over to BJ to explain a little bit more.
The GMS is the grant, and this is Ruby Kuzelbush from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. The GMS is the grant management system, so that's the kind of system of record. That is where your applications enter and awards get made from. It's an old legacy system that we're actually in the process of replacing and building a new one, but in the meantime, we have something called the performance measurement tool, short form PMT. It's really important that for yourself, for your peers, for us as the federal funder, as well as Congress, the appropriators, and the public, that we're capturing data about what you're accomplishing with the federal grant dollars. And so the PMT lets us ask those questions on a regular basis and provides you a way to submit them in a way that we're able to aggregate them and look at performance across programs and across the Second Chance Act appropriation.
Great, thank you. Another question, is there a place where we can find the complete list of all of the required reporting? I'll turn that over to BJ.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this webinar has the complete list. So that you have financial reports that are due. You heard from 3 folks, Zafra and Jennifer and Tracy, that talked about those kinds of reports. There are performance reports that are due. Those are the regular reports that are required on an ongoing basis. Right now, both of them are due quarterly within the system. There's a separate one at closeout, and Jennifer talked about the additional requirements before closeout. That's the only time that we'll ask for the recidivism indicator data, so that's a slightly larger performance report that gets handed in at that time. And then the kind of one and only planning and implementation guide, which helps you cross over from the planning phase into the implementation phase. Those are the 3.
And there's also the FFATA and FAPIS reporting that we touched on. There is going to be a FAQ that corresponds with the presentation that BJA Programs did, and that will be also added to the website, or you could reach out to us. So you do have programmatic reporting, you have financial reporting, and there are some mostly one-time administrative federal requirements if you have subaward reporting.
There was a question asking for more guidance around the notification of award amount. Is, for example, $800,000, is that for each year, or is that over the course of 3 years?
The award amounts are total for the entire project period. And Nicole, you mentioned that the webinar would be available for playback next week. And if people don't want to listen to the entire webinar but just want access to the PowerPoint slides, for instance, to review what the reporting requirements are that we've gone over, is that also just going to be available to folks in-house?
Yes, that will be posted in the link, so it will have the recording, but also a PDF of the slides.
Great, thank you. Any other questions coming in?
There was a question about, is there an area where we can find feedback, such as missing items from our application?
That would be your withholding special conditions in your award document. But it may be very general. It may say withholding special condition for missing application document or something of that sort. So you would need to reach out to your corresponding state policy advisor for additional detail on what was missing.
And if somebody doesn't know, Zafra, who that person is, it is on the award document, correct? And in the grant management system? Correct.
And as Nicole stated, there's no wrong door. So if you talk to someone in NRRC, or if you talk to someone in the policy office, or if you have to call BJA's main number, they'll help you find out who the right person is to help you. Or you could email any one of us three and we'll provide you the information and tell you who the right person is.
Yep, and folks are in good company as they're sorting through their special conditions, trying to get their budgets reviewed and cleared. We're all kind of standing by to assist and help facilitate getting that done so that you can get on to the good work of standing up your programs and serving people in the field at home in your jurisdictions.
We have a few questions around technical assistance. What organization will be providing TA, and when can we expect to hear from our TA point of contact?
So this is Ruby from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. I'm happy if Kathy Mitchell wants to add anything after I'm done. So you'll be getting communications from, specific to your grant right now from your state policy advisor. So one of the three people that you heard from earlier to help clear, any issues with withholding conditions specific to your grant. We will have, we're having ambulances go through here in downtown DC, so apologize for the background noise. You'll get in touch, you'll have outreach from the National Reentry Resource Center to be able to conduct an additional webinar in about a month where we'll roll out the planning and implementation guide. I know people are next going to really want to turn to that as soon as they get all of their special conditions and their budgets cleared, but that's the business of right now, is tending to getting everything freed up having to do with your budget as well as any special conditions on your grant. Next, you'll turn to understanding everything that's in the planning and implementation guide. The guides for 2018 are online. They are not changing very much, so if you're curious, they were also linked in all of the solicitations. You can go ahead and, take a look at what's included there and start to pull your teams together and start to answer those questions. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But we will have kind of official kickoff per grant track where we'll go into the nitty-gritty of what's required in all those planning and implementation guides. TA coaches will be identified through the National Reentry Resource Center. Right now, those folks are going to be with the Council of State Governments Justice Center, and when we are ready, and we will let you know who those individuals are at the American Institutes for Research.
Thanks, Ruby. Is the in-person training for finance and or program staff?
The required financial,
yeah,
I'll talk. The required financial training is for both the POC, so the financial point of contact and the POC on record. So that's who's listed in GMS, and that's who myself, Tracy, or Jennifer, that's who we know to contact firsthand. So you want to make sure that the right people are listed as the point of contact, and also understand that those people are required to take the financial training within 4 months, 120 days of award acceptance.
And Zafra, sometimes the point of contact changes, either because there's been a staffing change at the agency or someone more specific has been identified once the jurisdiction knows or the nonprofit knows that they've received the award. How does someone go about changing in GMS if the point of contact has changed?
There's a point of contact change, GAN, in GMS, and it's pretty quick.
Is a grant adjustment
notice. And again, is a grant adjustment notice that's done in GMS. One thing that you'll find on the FAQ, as well as probably in a lot of our signatures if we email you, is GMS includes a tutorial on how to submit GANs and how to do different functions that you'll do in GMS. So that's a helpful resource.
Thanks. Are special conditions and withholding conditions the same thing?
All special conditions are special conditions, including withholding special conditions, but withholding special conditions are specific in that they put a hold on funds. So those are ones that require immediate attention in order to access award funds, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And the last question is, how long is the financial management certification valid for?
Okay, and that was covered in the training. It's 3 years. It needs to be done every 3 years.
Do we know when the 2020 financial management training dates will be released? There was no open dates left for this year.
I do not know. I usually tell people if it's their first training to go ahead and do it online, and then keep up with the dates for in-person and mark your calendar and treat it like a concert or sporting event that you want tickets for, and be online as soon as it opens for the in-person training.
Can you confirm when the budget revisions are due and when the planning and implementation guide is due?
Budget revisions will be due as requested by your SPA. We work with the financial office who provides us, provides us with requests for additional information, and then we reach out to the grantee. Usually I provide about a week to turn around as quick as possible, but that varies. And P&I guides, it's what's in your special conditions. I'm not sure how many. I think the grants might vary in terms of the amount of time they have after budget approval to get their P&I guide done.
That's right, Zafra. We listed that both in the solicitation, and it would also be included as a special condition. We do say that it's not from the date that your project period starts. It's from the date that you receive final budget approval, because we don't expect you to do work until you have your final budget approved. So we start counting then. If you get it done earlier, that's great. There's no reason that you need to spend 4 or 6 months if you're able to complete that stage sooner.
All right, seeing no other questions, let me thank all of speakers here today. Lots of information on this webinar. Please look out for the link. The PDF of this webinar will be a resource to you later. And with that, that concludes today's webinar. And after you exit the webinar, a brief survey will appear on the screen. And by answering the questions in the survey, you'll help the Resource Center improve the services that we offer. And we greatly appreciate it if you take a few minutes to complete that. If you want more information, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is on the slide there, njared@csg.org. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.